That's working myself.
Live!
Make it so!
Make it so! Make it live!
It's warp time, or is it warp me? No, I don't know. It's one of them, isn't it?
It's, yeah. Warp me. I like warp me.
So
I like that one better.
Is this picking up my mic? Yeah, it is. Okay, cool.
Is
Yay.
it?
There it is. Yeah, it is.
Hooray.
Stevie saying yay into the mic. Hello, everyone. I hope you
Yay.
should be live. We're all appearing good. Is the sound working?
Yeah.
Yep, good. Fantastic. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Trek Central Weekly. We're calling it that now as a hint to what we're going to do in New Year, which has not been discussed yet, but it'll be quite fun to keep an eye out for that. Welcome back to Trek Central Live for the week of 13th of December. We're in December now. Wow. I mean, we wasn't last week as well, but still, wow. We're getting closer and closer to not only the end of 2020, but also the end of Star Trek Discovery Season 3, which is going to end in 21, so it's going to be pretty interesting. Anyway, this week we'll be discussing Star Trek Discovery Season 3, Episode 9, Terra Firma Part 1. If you've seen this episode already, wow, it certainly is an interesting one, and one many of us did not expect. Don't worry, we're going to be jumping into the full episode today and diving into everything, so if you've not seen it, turn away now, as there will be spoilers in this live stream. That's your once and only warning. I'm, of course, joined by my fantastic co-host this evening, Mr. Ketwolski. How are you doing, Nick?
I'm doing fantastic. Jack, how are you?
I'm not too bad. It's been ages since me and you have done a stream, hasn't it? You know, it's been quite a while since me and you have sat here.
Yeah. I mean, it's always Dom butting in, trying to weasel his way in. I know. Just, gosh, I know. And if anyone's wondering where Dom is tonight, we killed him. So he's
trying
never
on
back.
some Mandalorian antlers and a maid's dress as well. Starting some internet rumors right now.
He's making more shirts out of his blankets and quilts, I think is what he's doing. He's cutting them out and giving them out as gifts.
On a serious note, I was just making a cup of tea a minute ago, and I thought, isn't it odd how this time last year, TC was just sort of growing into live streaming? So I started doing some streams with you. Remember, one of our very first live streams on Trek Central was round about either in November or December of last year, I believe, before Picard.
Okay.
And I did it with yourself, and that was the first TC stream, I believe, we actually did on the channel. We had a really old branding as well. And you was our first guest, and that's when we began working together. It's been a whole year now of us working together and you being a part of the team. It's been around about a year, I'm thinking, because it was in the run-up to Picard, which is going to be a year's anniversary in January. Small world, eh?
It's, and it's amazing, because I bet if you go back to look at that video, it feels like it was 5 years ago, but the quality was probably so much higher. It's just gone downhill this whole year, I would say.
I'm watching my camera right now as I appear slightly overexposed because I've not set it right. So I'm slowly turning to Casper the
Straight
ghost
to the shitter.
Yeah. Yep. As you can see, Dom has disappeared to the mirror universe, as Rebecca just said in the chat there. He's definitely gone. We're not getting her back anytime soon. Imagine, what would Dom's mirror universe self be? That's something to imagine, isn't it?
Mirror Universe Dom would be an extrovert, and that makes me uncomfortable.
That does.
That makes me very uncomfortable.
Do you reckon the Mirror Universe one would wear the beanie or not?
No, he would actually wear sweatbands. Just only sweatbands.
Oh
it would be it would be that. That would be it. That would only thing he would wear. Yeah, instead of plaid, it would be like pinstripes. So it would be the opposite.
The leather
Everything
attire
is the
of the
opposite.
Terran Empire again? Those really leather suits they seem to wear, which is slightly weird, might I add.
They love a good leather suit. We've got to talk about that. We do.
We'll be jumping into this episode in good detail. Yes. Tom Casey, thank you for your $5 donation, saying, great to see you guys. Have a good discussion as always. Thank you, Tom. If you guys want to do super chats on YouTube, that's what they're called, feel free. And also you can become a YouTube member to support the channel here on YouTube. It is greatly appreciated, especially as you head into the year of 2021. We've got some fantastic announcements from Trek Central brand heading in 2021. Stick around to see them. I'm super excited to do a Christmas message or a New Year's message in a way. I was going to do a New Year's video for my channel, and I was going to take the piss and do it in the Queen style. It's this year has been a challenging year for the Captain Trek community.
Yeah, has been a challenging year.
I've been watching too much of The Crown.
I know. I was just going to say, I've seen every episode of that shit. Yeah, we have all made terrible choices in our lives, and it certainly is about that. Yeah, I love The Crown, man. I probably binged all of that in a weekend. I went through the whole thing. Yeah. Ooh. Oh, it's addictive. Okay. Anyways, we're back on
Star Trek Discovery. Terra Firma. So, a couple of details about this episode. This episode was written by Alan McElroy and also Bo-yeon Kim and Erica Lindenpot as well. What's very interesting about this episode is Bo-yeon Kim and Erica Lindenpot will be helming the new Section 31 series, which will star Michelle Yeoh as Phillipa Georgiou coming sometime in the future. No clear details on that yet. We've not had any concrete details for quite some time now. However, I think if you've watched this episode, it's a clear indication that these writers who are currently handling it know the character of Georgiou very well, and we'll discuss more detail on this in a minute. And I think this upcoming series is probably going to be in safe hands, but I'll probably reaffirm that statement this time next week when we discuss part 2. Of course, this episode is a two-parter. Part 2 will be coming this coming Thursday. It's called Terra Firma Part 2, written by the same people as per usual. So, you know, it's going to be interesting. We're going to have a lot more theories and discussions as we come around to part 2. But Nick, take it away. What did you think of Terra Firma Part 1? Because it certainly was an interesting episode.
Yeah, I would say that, talking about theories and speculations, I would say I don't think we guessed a single thing right about this episode. We had all of these grand ideas about what was in that nebula and what Terra Firma was going to be about and all these different things. And I feel like we were way off. Obviously, now in hindsight, the term Terra Firma is clearly an indication to the Terran Empire, but I don't think no one was really saying that. And if anybody in chat's like, I said it was the Terran Empire. No, you didn't. Nobody was saying Terran Empire.
I didn't see one thing on like Twitter, Facebook, anything about like Terran Universe.
Nobody was talking about Mirror Universe again. Nobody was talking about that. So that to me was a fantastic surprise. When she went through the doorway, I expected her to just go back in time, not to go back in time and jump universes again. It was very interesting. I thought the episode as a whole, my feelings about this episode are incomplete. That's the best way I can describe them as, is because we haven't seen this second part. I know Discovery is like, you know, it's like this whole connected storyline, right? But this is clearly a two-parter because all of the plot threads are still open. Nothing has been resolved, even for an episode. So my feelings on it are incomplete. I don't know if I hate or love it right now. I do feel rather strongly about, and we've talked a lot about this, you know, going back over the last year or so. I don't think it's a coincidence that this show with this cast and this crew tend to shine more when they're in the mirror universe. I like when they're there. I feel like everyone's having, and I get that everybody is enjoying a bit more fun, but like even Michael Burnham, like Sonequa plays, I thought she did a fantastic job because this was our first time seeing Mirror Burnham. And I was like, she's crazy and very intense and very intimidating. And I loved it. I really loved it. I was like, I kind of just want to see more of this. Like, she's super intense. And even Kelly was really well done. And I don't know. I think it's important to note that we've talked about, you know, if you look at season 1 of Discovery, a lot of people's favorite episodes of season 1 of Discovery were the Mirror Universe episodes. And I don't think it's a coincidence that once again, we go back to the Mirror Universe and all these actors are playing their Mirror Universe themselves. And it's just a better show. I don't know. Like I'm like clicking with it. I'm like, yeah, this is super Mirror Universe. Everything's dark and people are beating the hell out of each other and doing this crazy Oedipus play or whatever was going on there and getting stabbed in the neck. And it's super weird, you know? And I thought it was
Mirror
great.
Universe really is fucking weird, really, isn't it? It's the whole
right. It is super weird. And I don't know. And that's like, to me, like, I really love that. And again, like, I don't want to say if I loved or hated this episode or this plot arc with Georgiou yet until we see how it ends. We got to find out the conclusion. But as of right now, I am very, very interested to find out what goes on in part 2. I'm very, very interested to see the final explanation here. Yeah.
I totally agree with you. Like, you know, we need part 2 to really like make a firm judgment on this episode or these episodes in a way. It is like one big episode. I expect when it comes out to DVD or something like that, it will be counted as one episode in a way. A bit like how they do, you know, Encounter at Farpoint. It is 2 episodes, but technically it's like a 1 episode gist. So yeah, we will need to wait until we see it because we've only seen half the story so far. I see a lot of people in the chat coinciding with what I thought of whether this is a dream or whether this is indeed back in time inside the Mirror Universe. I think that's a larger discussion we'll have in a minute because I've got some crazy theories about that and the ramifications of that. And I know a lot of you are thinking the same as we are right now. Overall, this episode, honestly, like you said, did not expect them to go to the Mirror Universe. You know, I kind of said something last week. I said, I wonder if a Section 31 show would take place in the Mirror Universe, just off the bat of it. But I didn't expect them to go back to it. The only reason I said is because season 2 didn't make any mention of it, or rarely any mention of it, apart from Joe like teasing Pike at the very end because she was told to keep it under wraps. Season 3, apart from Kovic, who we'll also discuss later, is it Kovic? How do you pronounce his name, by the way? So I call him Kovic.
Kovic? Yeah. Lorkovich, I think is how
Cronenberg.
Cronenberg. That's his name.
That's his name now. Yeah.
I don't know why they bothered to give him a character name. That's all.
Cronenberg sounded like a cool name anyway. They should have just named him that, really, didn't it?
I know they should have just left it alone, but whatever. Yeah.
Well, we'll discuss that in a minute. But yeah, this episode, I honestly did not expect them to go back to the Terran Empire. But in a way, really well done. And we're seeing characters we've not seen before. Obviously, we didn't see Hugh Culber before in the Terran universe, or Mirror universe. And, you know,
he had that really nice red outfit on. Very dashing. I know. I love
as
that.
Well. Is it eyeshadow?
I know he did have eyeshadow. He was fabulous. He was fabulous, and I loved it. I loved it.
You are beautiful, you know.
He is beautiful. He was stunning. Everyone's outfits were fantastic.
What was really nice, by the way, canonically, we also see Rekha Sharma back as Commander Landry again, or Landry. I don't know if she's got the rank of Commander. That was really cool to see and have that level of detail as well. Also, what I love is some people are catching it already. The two actors who played Arium in season 1 and 2 can actually be seen in this episode as well. Both, is it Hannah Mitch, is it? And then Sarah Cheeseman, or have I got his names? I might have got his names mixed up.
You're asking the wrong one. I have no idea.
The two actors who played Arium can be seen in this episode, like, stood next to each other. And it's really interesting how we're both fair in a way, which I really liked and think is a great idea.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's like, canonically, it makes sense inside of Discovery's own little bubble at the minute. Like, it all lines up and canonically makes sense. Like, all these actors and actresses are where, or characters, should I say, are where they're meant to be, which is really interesting. The only thing I want to hammer home is, I don't think we'll get this because of budget constraints and likely just timing. It would be great if we actually saw a bit of Lorca as Jason Isaacs' Lorca in the next episode. I think it's unlikely we will, because we probably would have heard something through the grapevine of rumors by now. I mean, I'll be happily surprised if he is like somehow in there.
Okay, so
you have an idea. You take it away.
All right, so we'll jump right into the Lorca discussion.
Because they make a big song and dance about him in this episode, rightly so, because this has been time frame where he's doing his coup.
Right. So here's my thing. Here's what I think is going to happen, and maybe this is going to be playing a little fast and loose with the time frame of everything, especially now that you can write it off as Georgiou has clearly already changed the plans by her killing Stamets there instead of him living, which is, I guess, what was supposed to happen, because obviously he was in the other Mirror Universe episodes in season 1, so she didn't kill him during the play. And Lorca's rebellion had already failed at that point. What I'm thinking is what's going to happen, and what I would love to see, is that the reason that Lorca's rebellion doesn't work is during one of his fights in the early parts of the rebellion, he gets sucked through and swaps places with his Prime Universe self. So Prime Lorca appears in the Mirror Universe, and that's when the plan falls apart. And potentially that kind of sets up the backdoor connection with Lorca getting back into the Prime Universe or something like that. I think it's very possible. And the reason I say that is Jason Isaacs, the individual who played Lorca, was for like the whole part of this, like the beginning of like the end of last year and the beginning of this year, was constantly in interviews saying he wants to return to Star Trek. He'd love to be a part of Strange New Worlds. What's going on with Prime Lorca? He was doing a lot of interviews, and then he did like a final interview. Right. He did a final one where he said, actually, guys, I really can't talk about it anymore, which says to me, he said like the lines like, I plead the fifth on it or whatever.
Yes, he did. I remember that now. It was a couple of months ago. Or about 5 months ago now.
Right. Right. It was about 5 months ago, which puts it right around the time frame of filming for this season, potentially like a small cameo tuck in. I think we're gonna get Lorca, and I would love for it to be a Prime Lorca situation.
So as Dom isn't here this evening, I will take on the canon master role and know of all things. As me and Dom, we did a big video, I think, earlier this year on like, will Lorca return? Or it may have been last year now. We discussed it because I love Jason Isaacs. I think he's a great actor. For me, one of his best roles is in Star Wars, actually, where he played the Grand Inquisitor in Rebels. Only clocked me after I like read it up on him. I was like, oh, nice, he's the actual voice actor for that? Wow. Anyway, in the pocket discovery novel called Drastic Measures, which is written by the author Dayton Ward, who's done a ton of Star Trek novels before, that's actually focused on Prime Lorca and also Prime Georgiou as well. It focused on them in their past, essentially. Now, at the very end of the book, spoilers by the way, it is revealed that in the Mirror Universe, after Lorca's switched, Prime Lorca's in the Mirror Universe, and he's held in a secure prison. Little else is really revealed about this, and I'm taking some memory out right now because I've not read the book in ages. But this ruthless nature of Lorca's captors suggests that he's still somewhere in the Mirror Universe in the right time frame, so like in the current time. So therefore, he's still alive as of that book. Now, the books are sort of like flexible canon in a way that, you know, it's not concrete information when the show is concerned, so they can overwrite that. But lately, and I say lately, the books have, you know, tried fitting in very well with Star Trek media. You know, they'll try and work through to the best of their ability, a bit like how Star Wars does it in a way, but not to the letter T, essentially. They're like flexible. If they need to overwrite it, they will. They try and work with it, which is really good because it does promote like merchandise and the ability for auxiliary media to make more sense in a way. It's not like we've got all these old Star Wars books which make, or Star Trek books which make total no sense anyway. But so basically he's still alive in the movie universe as we know so far. Obviously the show can override it and change it. There is a possibility, is what I'm saying, for him to reappear at some point. But like you say there, the Prime One could come through, and it could make a lot of sense. Setting up that back door for, you know, Georgiou to find Prime Lorca and return. I still think for Jason Isaacs to also like co-star a Section 31 series could be very interesting. Him and like Michelle Yeoh definitely have a good, like, you know, they could bounce ideas off them, and as an actor and actress, I think they could work really well together. Something like that could work well.
Yes. I agree with that, but ultimately, so the Lorca story and the idea of Lorca appearing, they could just go with the standard mirror universe Lorca and not really change too much there. Because the Lorca theories I have, and a lot of people have, are also connected to what exactly is going on.
Yeah, I suppose we should discuss that next, really.
Yeah, so why don't you take that away? Because I know you and I've talked a little bit about that. Of what do we think happened when she walked through the door?
So the door for me, and I guess we should just do the entity of Carl in a way, because, you know, we all theorize of the Guardian Forever. Then as soon as I saw Carl of the entity, my immediate thought was, this is Q in a way, or AQ, or something like him in a way, because it's that very like sarcastic being. I tell you what, I said this in our group chat while I was watching it. Was it on Thursday? I was like, look at this, typing in spoiler things. I was like, that's really interesting. For me, the character of Carl really gave me Stargate SG-1 vibes. I don't know if you watched SG-1 before?
I've seen it several times, yes.
So
many
in
times.
the bits when they dealt with the Ascended Anubis, they had that cantina scene, or diner scene is it's called in America.
Yep. Yeah, diner scene.
And basically they had like the Ascended beings coming in and chatting. The way Carl was done was very similar to Anubis coming in and taunting, basically knowing the answers to everything, but just acting like a dick about it anyway. Carl kind of struck me as that in a way where he wouldn't answer the question properly, but, you know, knew what was about to happen and knew what was going on, almost like an Ascended being in a way. It was very similar to that in a way. I don't know, it's just really, it also constructed me, and I said as well, very similar to Man in the High Castle and the fact of Hawthorne Anderson, that character, the way the character was written and conducted, very similar to that. But what do I think in the Star Trek universe? Really hard to like say a bit of concrete information on. I reckon it could be an analogy or some form of the Guardian of Forever, maybe in evolved form, simply because the newspaper and what it contains a lot of references to the Guardian of Forever's past things, such as the episode of The City on the Edge of Forever, and a few of dots around, etc. There's also a bit of a reference to the Con Empire, which was referenced in Star Trek Picard, and there's a big hoo-ha about that for a while. Not hoo-ha, but there's a big discussion about it, essentially, on how that related to the artificial, synthetic, Reaper mechanical things we see at the end of Picard, which is, we're not going down that discussion today. Because
no, let's not go down to the centipede. Let's not talk about the centipede. But so just so everybody knows, like, so there are breakdowns all across the internet right now and on Twitter and stuff like that, and videos on YouTube where people blew up the newspaper that Carl was holding and went through kind of all the little Easter eggs, and they were specifically put in there. I think it was it Michelle Paradise that tweeted that out?
Yes,
that was like
extra producer, but something.
Yes, like somebody spent time to put little specific Easter eggs into the newspaper that he was holding beyond just the information about Georgiou. And they did have a lot of references, which I think really is like a little bit of a tease that this being or this entity is a physical representation of the Guardian of Forever. And we also do know that there is precedence to that, because I believe in the original script, the Guardian of Forever wasn't just a doorway, it was actually a being, it was a person.
Yes, I've got to find this a minute, because
archway.
We discussed it earlier, because we always like discussing our theories. So somebody sent this to me in the group chat, and I think someone will set it to our account on Twitter as well. Basically, the original person, it's Harlan Ellison's original concept of Guardian Forever, was basically meant to be this like almost like godlike figure in a way. And tell you what, because I've been on a Star Wars binge watch recently, do you remember those Clone Wars episodes where we had like the father, son, and daughter? Do you remember those episodes?
Yes. Yeah.
The father looks very similar to the
very
concept.
similar.
And I'm
yes,
like, I was watching like The Mandalorian this week with some friends, and I was on like FaceTime. I was like, "Do you see this?" And I'm like, "Nah, we don't know what you're talking about." But like, it looks similar. Reinforce my fan theories. And like, we don't know what you're talking about. It looks very similar. So absolutely. You know, it could possibly be that after all this time. I think the last time we saw the Guardian of Forever was back in 2261. Don't correct me on the dates. It's like 2260 something when Kirk and Spock were journeying around. the Guardian could have evolved by then. We're now like in a very, very different time period, and over 900 years later.
It's also a different planet, so it's also likely to assume it could be a different Guardian. It could be an entity that operates similar to that of the Guardian, because they only got the tip-off of this location from the sphere data. So, it could have been something that was slightly different than that. And
can I just say, no disrespect to revise anything, the sphere data is a very convenient plot device for anything you need, isn't it? It's like,
don't hate it. Don't hate it.
Don't worry, we've got one in the Wikipedia over here. It's like in last week's
sphere data,
episode,
what I should have for dinner.
where he had all the Wikipedia stuff in the bloody arm. It's like, how convenient. That's just carried around, isn't it?
That's right.
Sci-fi and writing. Before we continue, 2 quick donations. I think it's Sean Casey, £5. It says Mira Diskaku chewing with scenery was cringy. Trying to outdo Mira Shatner. A lot excited for part 2, but still need more story, less angst. Do you mean like antagonist in a way? I don't know what you mean by the end part there. Armageddon for $5 says, is it just me or does the Emperor's outfit look like it's right out of Warhammer 40k? I'm going to let you in a secret. I've never done much of Warhammer. Nick, have you done Warhammer or any of that sort of stuff?
I have, and it does look like it's right out of Warhammer 40k, which honestly, if you're considering that she's cosplaying as the God Emperor of humanity, it makes total sense that it would look like it was from Warhammer 40k. So yeah, adds up for sure. I like it.
So a couple of questions for chat a minute. I do not think Carl was a Q would feel a little bit predictable. I mean, you say predictable, but none of us predicted that, this will take place in this episode in this format in a way. So it could be a Q. We've seen other Q before, so it doesn't... I don't feel they'd do a Q, but I don't think it makes sense. Why would a Q be on this planet? And Q are typical omnipotent beings in a way. The sphere data wouldn't know one permanently resides on that planet, but there could be like plot and reasons for it.
I'm going to throw something out there, and we've talked a little bit about this before with this specific season.
Why do you do that? Which is quickly reconnect my camera, so you carry on.
Okay, yeah. So one of the things that has come up a lot in this season is questions that don't have any answers, and not like bad things, and then I'm not talking about the burn. Obviously, we're going to get an answer to that question at some point. But like simple things, like where is the Starfleet headquarters, located at? What quadrant of the galaxy is it in? What quadrant did they land in when they first arrived from the past? What was going on with that planet? What happened with the other space station that we were on at the beginning of the season and then we kind of left behind? There's like these weird detail questions that they're not answering right now. And I'm almost wondering if they're doing that as an intentional thing, because I feel like maybe they're just afraid of putting too much into concrete because they've been beaten over the head for the last 2.5 years about canon, and they're afraid to put anything too solidified down in terms of these specific details. So I say that with potentially we may not actually get an answer as to what Carl is. He may just be an entity, and we never actually find out anything more beyond just the little Easter eggs on the newspaper, and then that's it. And then maybe later on, someone will come through with a beta canon construct and explain all this stuff. But I do find it interesting that they have been doing that quite a bit this season.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering why, and that's what I'm saying is we may not actually figure out who Carl is. That may not be a satisfactory answer. So we'll see.
I think it kind of brings me back to the point I made the last couple of weeks now, and you agree with me in a sense where, it feels like the story may be going over a couple of seasons in a way, because Discovery, and I said this last week, it's in this new sandbox now. It's got a lot of space and it's got a free roam to play with a lot of stuff, but still has to respect the previous canon. So if you want to put new stuff in, you still have to respect the previous canon. You've got to be careful who's going to drop a planet in the middle of nowhere. Yes, putting it in a gamma quadrant, which is a detail some might have missed, putting it in the Gamma Quadrant, you've got a bit more free reign because we've not really explored the Gamma Quadrant as much. It was explored a bit in DS9, but because of a certain faction called the Dominion, who were not the nicest people in the world, didn't really get much exploration done. Rip the Odyssey, that was a great ship and a great captain. But, I feel like they have got time to play with it. There's no rush, I think. Discovery, we know this, has got a couple more seasons left in it, at least, at this point in time. They've got plenty of time to play with this and solidify it. Then, even when Discovery finishes in a couple of years' time, there's plenty of auxiliary media to iron out these little details, which other Trek media's done for decades, adding in these little details, which we know is canon and fact now, if that makes sense. They don't have to worry about those little details, although we like them because we're uber nerds and we love the details. They don't have to do them right away. And I agree with you, they're doing it maybe on purpose in a way to, come back to another day. To be honest, if we didn't know who Carl was and didn't find out, I wouldn't be totally mad about it, because having like mysterious entities it's not new to Star Trek. They've done that before. All these mysterious things. You know, what are they? Where do they come from? Etc.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm fine with that. Right. Not
everything. I'm probably a bit peed off for a little while
be...
because I like to know Star Trek. I like to know the lore.
Right.
At the same time, oh well,
right.
Yeah, it's sci-fi. We don't have the answer to everything.
Right. I mean, like, we still don't even know, like, what were the jellyfish creatures in Encounter at Farpoint?
I don't think that's ever been.
Right. They call them cosmozoans, but what is that? What did that even mean? We don't know. And it's not everything needs to be completely explained. And I know that frustrates Trekkies, including myself. Like, I'm frustrated just saying that out loud because I also want to know, like, and dig into the details of it all. But is it necessary really to codify that right at this moment in this part of the story? And really the answer is no. Really the answer is the sphere data, which is its own crazy kind of, MacGuffin thing, gave us a weird tip off. And now we're dealing with this weird entity and they're just trying to help us out to save Georgiou. And yeah, does it really need to be codified and quantified and solidified? I don't think so. I don't think so, which is,
I agree,
it's just different. It's different. It's a different thing for sure.
Ultimately, we'll have to, like I say, I think a lot of us today, we're going to be saying we have to wait until next week because really this is a split story in a way. We won't have the answers we seek until part 2. Maybe at the very end of that, Carl will go, well, time for me to be off, and clicks his fingers and vanishes off somewhere or taps his shoes together, whatever the Q do these days, It could be something really like that, or it could just be the garden in forever. Maybe it's a giant voice that echoes out, something like that. Danny Shields donates $10, or €10, should I say. They say, Carl is O'Connor from Lower Decks. This is how boring his sentence is. Sitting on a park chair on an empty planet doing a newspaper crossword. That could be quite funny, to be honest. But...
Oh, why is it burning? Yeah, I love that. That's
when
good.
I said O'Connor
He's
for
actually,
a second, I thought he meant Ensign O'Connor from the original bits. It was Lieutenant Connor from Star Trek Discovery Season 1, but when he gets blown out the airlock or blown out the brig, I think, originally. And then he gets killed in the Mirror Universe as well. Yeah, right. So I was like, why didn't we see him? Then I realized... Actually, he's on the Shenzhou by now, isn't it? Which still is operational at this point. And that's where Burnham must have been. She must have been on the Shenzhou at this point.
Yes.
That's where she come from. Weirdly enough, we didn't see that. I guess the CG budget didn't dictate having that in a way, but...
They don't have that kind of cash.
It's weird because they didn't show the... They showed only a clip of the ISS Khan as well, which was a reused clip, I'm pretty sure, from...
Oh, no, it 100% was, yeah.
Yeah, they didn't need to make a new one, really. There was no need to make a new one. And what's kind of odd is the next episode going to take place on the Khan, or is it going to be all on Discovery? Because so far from the trailers and the clips, which we'll discuss a bit more at the end of the stream, it looks like it's taking place on Discovery. So I'm not sure how part 2 is actually going to roll out, or what the story of it's going to be. Realistically, we are in the dark quite a lot about where the story's going right now. And while I hate it in one way, it's good because it means it's not predictable. And I said this in a review, I love sci-fi when it's not predictable, because I'm sick of the last 5-10 years of sci-fi stuff being predictable to the point where it bores me to death, especially in video games lately. Really, I don't like them.
Yeah, I mean, so let's get into the bigger, like, we're kind of talking a little bit about this, right? So I don't think, because they've just spent an enormous amount of time, energy, effort, and money putting the Discovery 900 plus years into the future and establishing the universe 900 years into the future, if they literally sent Georgiou back in time, even to her own timeline, but back in time, it's already changing the first season of Discovery.
Yes.
So they're already, even right now, with her killing Stamets and arresting Michael Burnham, has fundamentally altered the timeline of what we saw inside of season 1 of Discovery.
Yeah.
I do not, as much fun and as interesting as it would be to see that play out in that way, I do not believe that they've spent all this money, time, energy, and effort putting the Discovery this far into the future, only for them to erase it with these 2 episodes. What I think is happening. No, what I think is happening, and this goes off of what Carl said right before she went in there, which is like, your little band thing will stay on and stay green, but be careful. There's many other ways to die. And I think is what he's trying to show to her. I think it's a little bit of like a Ghost of Christmas Past type situation, a little Ghost of Christmas Future type situation, where it's just a vision. And it's just showing her that it's just trying to teach her a lesson. And I think the lesson has to do with its differences between Mirror Universe Michael and Prime Michael, because she likes to compare them quite a bit. And even right now, I think she's kind of taken aback by realizing, they're actually not that much alike. And Mirror Universe Michael is kind of friggin' crazy and is a bit of a nutcase.
Martin Green's like acting like with Michael, like when she's like saying, "Yes, I betrayed him." Like, Jesus Christ, get away from the screen. I feel like you're gonna be in the room with me any minute now. Really,
and I loved it. It was
great.
So
intense. It's just very creepy, is all I'll say.
Yes, it was so intense. So I don't think that this is actually her past.
No,
I don't think that's the case. I really don't. I'd be surprised if that was really what was going on again, just because from a financial standpoint, they've spent too much resources.
It would also alienate like the season we've
up.
explored so far. You know, Admiral Vance and Kat, and also Kovic, or Kovic, however you want to pronounce the name. It would alienate all these characters and things we've done so far if they were to change it in a way. That would, you know, Star Trek's done these one-off episodes before where it's introduced like an alternate timeline or a parallel universe, and then it's fixed by the end of the 45 minutes or whatever the Trek episodes used to run to. That's fine. Yes. But you think, so far, we're on 9 episodes, that would alienate the last 8 episodes completely and change them? Will that be a waste of time and money? Why would you set up these characters? Clearly, like, characters like Admiral Vance and Book, presumably, if the season 9, are set up to go on further seasons. I strongly think Admiral Vance is going to be a recurring character for the next couple of seasons, because
yes, of course.
Staying in his time.
I mean,
he's like
Cronenberg Cronenberg just said that he's going to be in season 4. Right, so there's obviously...
I don't think it's changing it, so therefore... As much I would, in one way, I'd like this to be back in time in a way so it'd like make mechanical sense. I do believe this is like some sort of parallel or like dimension in a way where she's exploring her past self, and like you say, this entity is teaching her a lesson in a way, and somehow this will cure her. It's going to be, I hate to use this phrase, it's going to be some sci-fi bullshit at the end of the day, but that's probably how she's going to get cured, quote unquote, and that's how it's all going to come out and fix it. Whether that involves her being dropped back in time, clearly this entity, that's like, or Carlos, we should call it, is, you know, whatever it's doing to her right now, has the power to create an entire dimension to teach her a lesson. Probably has the power to send her anywhere she or he wants, or they want, shall I say. You know, it's something's going to go there. But also, we're going to have to see part 2. I don't know how to predict or, you know, say anything about this episode right now, because we've got very little to go on for like part 2, really. Like, how is there going to be a resolution to this one, really?
Yeah, I have no idea. I really don't know. Are they going to really try to... Because again, I'd love to see it play out, because it would have been different if they sent her back in time to try to change the events of the past to prevent the burn, because then you could do like a kind of a situation where she makes a small change in the past, which then alters the future and prevents the burn from occurring. And then you could still bring back some of the same characters and be like, no, we never left Earth. What are you talking about? And you know what I mean? Like, who are you guys? Like, what are you talking about? Like, that is possible, but I just feel like...
She's also in the mirror universe as well, though, so she'd have to jump to the Prime universe to make the change. Even Kovic says, you know, in episode 5, the mirror universe and Prime universe have drifted significantly apart, so the cause of the burn is likely not going to originate from the mirror universe. Therefore, she can't change much unless she jumps to the Prime universe in a way.
Well, that's what I was thinking is, okay, so if she knows for sure that her going to the future after jumping timelines is going to cause a damage, and if she was literally actually in the past, then she would just know that at the end of the season 2 battle, then she just doesn't travel forward in time with the Discovery. She has to get off the ship. But that already changes the outcome of Discovery season 3 because she's the one that saved Saru and Tilly at the bar at the beginning.
Yeah.
So without her being there, they might die. And
she
that
did
would
the whole Scavengers episode as well.
Right, and the Scavengers episode as well. Without her being there,
she's been too much of a key and pivotal character. She's made too much of... We should say it is, she made too much of an impact on the future already. Like, if you imagine Time Daniel, or Time Daniel? Agent Daniel, the Time Agent. The fuck's he called again? Time Agent Daniel, whatever the frick he's called. Temple Agent, that's the one.
Temple Agent, there you go.
He's going along and give you a lecture on like how she's made too much of an impact, so removing her from a timeline would have a disastrous effect. To be honest with you, I know the Time Agency is disbanded in, you know, the 32nd century, and presumably that's gone unless Cronenberg really is a time agent or temporal agent, as I might like predict in a way. You think by now time agents would be looking at us going, what the fuck are you doing? Because Daniels could operate in Enterprise's time frame, but if you think of time as a linear thing, the future's already technically happened. So therefore, time agents are still free to operate to a degree. I hate discussing time travel in any.
Yeah, let's move on. Let's not get into timelines.
Let's do a quick couple of donations second. Thank you for sending in donations, by the way. I had one from, is it Amir says, can't be cute, wouldn't need a door, probably an upgraded version of a Guardian, which is also found on How to Planet. We discussed that earlier. I'm pretty sure next week we might get an answer to that question, or we might not. Daniel Schultz, thank you for another €5. It's also showing Georgiou that she was never inherently evil by presenting with the world she lived in and how that shaped her. That's partially true. We are seeing her in this episode, taking Saru as a slave, and that's because she's become accustomed to Saru, although she wouldn't admit it, in the Prime timeline. She's like, on second thought, quickly, before I answer a couple more donations, we got a great moment with Saru in this episode, and I pulled up in a review where he's walking down the corridor with Booker when Booker comes running along. starts chatting to him. A very Captain moment from traditional Trek, I feel, there, where he's like, don't worry, we'll get around to it eventually, then like fucks off to the bridge or whatever. It's like, for that was very Star Trek in a way. It's that typical walk and talk Captain conversation. You can place Janeway there or Picard, and it's very much the same in a way, I'd feel, you know, just reminds him of the protocols and then goes about his daily life. I love that because it's showing Saru's fitting into the role. I see a lot of criticism saying he's an incompetent captain. Just remember, he's not a traditional Star Trek captain. He's not risen through the ranks like correctly in a way, like whereas Picard or Janeway, you know, they went through Commander. Saru's experiences as a character have been vastly different than that any other Star Trek captain we've seen before, I would say, because he's literally, you know, come into a war. His mentor was killed. Then he went to a psycho mentor who was actually a Terran
literal
person.
Psycho mentor.
Then he's under Captain Pike, who was a bit of a serious upgrade. And then he's been flung into the future. If I looked at his CV right now, I'd go, "What the hell have you been doing?" That's, you know, he's not a conventional captain, is what I'm trying to say. So I think he's doing really well, and I can't wait to see Doug Jones portray him a lot more. Somebody said, you know, is he going to get killed off? Hell no, we will riot. If so, we have to have Star Trek Saru. Because, we're not having that.
No way. No way they're going to kill off Saru.
Another €5 saying, Brian Fuller recently spoke about how he wanted to use the mirror universe in Disco to explore concepts of nature versus nature, and this feels like that. Potentially could be that explored concept. I mean, Star Trek Discovery is still credited as being created by Brian Fuller, so technically, Nick, you probably know more about this, they're probably free to use those ideas to a degree, I'd imagine, or at least those concepts, in a way, if that's something you may be exploring through the original Discovery concept.
I mean, kind of,
yeah.
I mean, there's a bit more to it than just say, and if TJ was on here, she could probably talk a bit more about it, but you know, it's a bit more than just, there's a difference between getting the credit for the creation of the story and then using specific elements as well from the ideas, I think. So I think that there would be something there, but there's no reason to say like that wouldn't be necessarily inspired by that idea. And who knows exactly how much of that he's actually mocked up for them to utilize, and if they really own it. And they probably do own it, and kind of getting the credit there. But I mean, definitely, I feel like that's definitely part of the lesson that I feel like the being is attempting to show Georgiou, which is, I mean, even Saru in the mirror universe is much different, obviously, than the one that we know from the Prime timeline, but he's still got those elements to him that kind of show through. But then you look at somebody like Michael, who literally has zero of the same elements of the person that we knew from the Prime timeline. Yeah. And I think that that's trying to showcase that to Georgiou, which is that there is a lot more to somebody's nature versus their nurture. And obviously Michael's nurture was pretty terrible because her mom was the friggin' goddess of the Terran Empire, and it clearly didn't pan out very well. It's going
to rub off on you a little bit, isn't it? No, Dad, the veteran, for $5, they just quickly say she knows Lorca is in the Prime universe, and she'll bring him back to Discovery. I don't know how that will go down. Again, if it's a dimension, that's technically not the correct Lorca in a way, is it? I don't know. That's a complicated discussion, I'll be really honest.
Well, that's it. You know, and it kind of depends, right? Because if she captures Lorca after they swap places, and he's like, I don't know what the freak is going on.
Crazy lady?
And then she'd be like, oh my God, this idiot is here, and it's the Prime universe version of him, and I know how to get you back. And again, this goes back into the construct. That's why I say the Lorca stuff ties directly into what it is that happened when she walked through the doorway. If this is just a Ghost of Christmas Past construct, then they're not really going to dive into that Lorca stuff. But if Lorca shows up and they're going heavily into that stuff, then as I'm watching it, I'm going to feel like they're going to go into potentially doing a bit more of a rewrite of what the timeline was for Discovery overall. But I really don't think they're going to do that. They've done such good work to get them so far away from all those freaking problems. I would be so surprised if they bothered to screw around with the things that they already screwed around with.
The world building has been too intense for Discovery Season 3, which we've loved. We've commented. The world building they've done is fantastic. You know, the Vulcan reunification, everything like that. Fantastic. You know, how the Federation is currently, it's not the Federation we knew, but is the same Federation to the same degree in a way. They still hold the principles of the core. You know, it is what we know to a degree. It's changed. It's different. I don't think they're going to throw that away. It would make no sense, especially with the new uniforms and the comm badges. They made a big song and dance about this being, you know, welcome to 3189, whatever it is, 3188. You know, it's one thing I never got about with Premiere is like, welcome to 3188, when the actual year the whole season takes place in is 3189. It's like, okay.
Well, it's
I know she waited a year.
They got there on New Year's Eve. Oh,
fair enough. Yeah, it's like, well, happy New Year.
And so I say all that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go for it.
I was going to say I say all that, and I will repeat again that I would love to see them play that out and do kind of a restructure of the past. But again, if she was sent back in time to prevent the burn, then I would be like, okay, that's clearly what they're trying to get at, is she's going to change something. But because they just sent her back in time because she was phasing in and out of reality, I don't think that's going to be the case. But it's obviously something is going to happen. I mean, honestly, man, I don't know. I really don't know. I really have no idea.
Which is good in a way, because predictable media bores me, to be honest. Like, if I can predict a storyline, and I felt like we did some of that with Star Trek Picard in a way, where the episodes did become a little bit predictable towards the end, where it's like, oh well, I'm pretty sure someone's going to show up towards the end and save them, and oh, look at that one. You know, we didn't predict Riker, obviously, but it got a bit predictable in a way. Whereas I'm really glad this next episode, I don't know where it's going to go. Even looking at the trailers, which we can discuss in about 10 minutes time, they don't really give you much for next week, to be honest. There's not much to go off of, you know.
Even in the Ready Room clip, there's really nothing. It was really absolutely nothing, and that's by design. And honestly, to your point, we actually did predict that Riker would show back up, because they literally had a line in that episode where he's like, you know, I'm still on active reserve duty and I can be recalled at any time. Wink. You know, looks right at the camera and winks. You know, so yeah, this is really good. Like, this is really, really good, because it's, again, like, the burn is, even though it like seems like that's like the focus of the season, it really, really isn't. And we've been talking for about 40 minutes now, and we haven't even talked about it yet.
I suppose I'll read these two quick donations, then we'll touch on it, because I did critique it in this review as well. So just quickly, Dan the Veteran, thank you for $5 donation. It says, thanks, Jack and Nick. Everyone smash that like button. Everyone smash it like 150 likes right now. There's 220 people watching. Can we get to 100 likes by the time I finish the next sentence is the question. 3, 2, 1, engage. Danny Shields donates €10, and they say, Lorca was presumed dead in the mirror universe when Georgiou destroyed the Baran, right? But he had already swapped with Prime Lorca, maybe. So she technically could change that into a vision, but what does that mean? So you are technically correct. They did presume Lorca was dead. However, he'd switched, so Mirror Lorca had gone to Discovery, gone to the Prime universe, or our universe at that time. However, the actual Prime Lorca, as revealed in the book, which was, what was it called again? Drastic Measures, Lorca was still alive in the Mirror Universe. It was presumed to be Mirror Universe. However, the book does allude it could be another Terran Universe or Terran Empire faction. By the time that, because of Georgiou's disappearance, the Terran Empire becomes slightly stagnated in a way. There are other factions of the Terran Empire, I believe. Don't quote me fully on this. Dom's the best person to ask about this, probably. However, I believe it was implied in the book that another faction of Terran Empire people may be holding on to Lorca, which makes sense when you think how Georgiou's disappeared. They can use him as leverage to control the other side.
The theory that he died was something that they assumed that the Baran was destroyed, but also they assumed that Prime Lorca would not have survived in that universe based off of the briefing to Sarek and Admiral Cornwell, I think it was, and they were like, this place is insane, and it's been like a year since he would have been gone or whatever it was. And so she was like, there's no way that someone from the Prime timeline would have likely survived alone in the mirror universe. And so that's where that assumption came from, which I think, again, was intentionally left open. Yes. Yeah.
I think it's very much left open, but when you read the book Drastic Measures, it does display what type of a character Lorca is. So I reckon he could survive, and the book does imply he's survived. You know, he survived anyway. I would like to see that storyline resolved, to be honest, because I think, you know, great character, and Jason Isaacs a great actor as well. Will we get it? I'm unsure. It really is hard to talk about that. Anyway, let's talk about the burn. Now, I critiqued this part of this week's episode. I said, you know, while I very much like this whole thing of Georgiou, it feels like we pushed the storyline of the burn slightly to the side in favor of resolving this little plot point issue in a way, where it's like, Georgiou's here, but we need to get her somewhere else to start another series. But at the end of the day, like, the resolution for the burn this episode, obviously, our theory last week was Discovery was at the center of this nebula and it tied in with Calypso. That theory kind of got ejected at the airlock this week when it's revealed it's a Kelpien ship of all things. Of course, it had to be a Kelpien ship in a way at the center of the nebula, which is emitting a stress signal. So I'm not really sure where to go now, because they already know technically who it is and what it is. Kind of takes away from the mystery and the whole shebang at what's at the center of the nebula in a way, I guess. There may be something else that Discovery still could be there. The nebulas are quite big. I don't know. How did you feel about that whole section?
I was obviously surprised. I honestly, I was kind of just like, because again, I I'm almost getting the sense, and I'm going to throw out a potential theory here, which I really hope does not come true, which is that almost all of these episodes, like the burn has been like a throughput line, right? Yeah. But as you just said, like it's clearly been sidelined. And almost if you really think about it, in every episode leading up to this one and probably continuing on, the burn has been like really like the C plot of most of the episodes. Yeah. And there's all of these other things that are going on that are much, much more important. And I'm wondering if we may not actually get an answer.
So I'm wondering if this, I think a week or two ago now, didn't we? The idea that the burn plot could carry on into, a couple more seasons in a way, because Discovery's got this realm to play with essentially. It doesn't have to say what caused it or who caused it in a way. And I kind of like said, maybe it'll be revealed at the end of Discovery. It's like, haha, we actually caused the burn, but we're not going to tell you how we did it. More haha. And, maybe it's like, maybe the Federation of our own enemy or something like that. I don't know. I still strongly believe that the Draish have got something to do with the whole storyline of Discovery so far, or season 3, should I say. Because they've been name dropped once. We know those involved in Calypso. I strongly believe they've got something to do with it in a way. Now, while on that subject, there is only 4 more episodes of Discovery left. Obviously, not counting Terra Firma Part 2, there's 3 episodes left. The Citadel, The Good of the People, and Outside. Those names, the Citadel's typically... What would you call a Citadel in a way? I'd call it like a heavily guarded base or a military installation.
A structure, a massive, important structure that
usually heavily fortified and quite
right. There's something, and it's critical. It's a very critical thing. It's something critical. Yeah, absolutely.
Then we've got The Good of the People. That's I don't really know where to go with that one, to be honest. That's on December 31st.
That could mean anything. I have no idea.
That's a very Star Trek name in a way. Then the final episode of season 3 is called Outside. That name there, that title name, could allude to something outside. I don't think it means just outside a ship or outside a planet. I have a feeling that's got a deeper meaning when it originally appears. It's Star Trek, so it probably does. Yeah. But I have a feeling there's a deeper meaning there.
Yeah, it's going to be outside something. It's going to be like outside time, outside the plane of like our normal
outside the galaxy
realm, outside the galaxy.
We're going to Andromeda.
Yes, we're going to Andromeda.
So well.
That's right. I'm gonna I don't know. I'm actually thinking now that we're talking about it, I don't know if we're ever gonna get an answer to the burn. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the point is that we've focused, because they were like, the Federation can't move on without uncovering the mystery of the burn. But I'm wondering if the point is that they have to move on, even with the answer kind of unanswered. Even with the question kind of unanswered. I hope that's not the case. But I just feel like it's just not going to get answered. And I hope that's not the case, because they're going to get lit up online. People are going to be super pissed if they don't get an answer as to why the burn didn't actually occur.
It's going to be a difficult one. Because it's
going to come across as lazy. It's going to come across as lazy.
As a character has spent a lot of the season so far personally, in a way, leading this one-man mission in a sense to find
a whole year.
Burn. I feel like that would undermine her as a character a little bit in a way. I don't know, because she spent all this time, now he's going to sideline it. Honestly, I think we have to see how the next episode plays out before we make any judgment on the storyline of the burn. These 2 episodes are strongly put there to resolve the Georgiou storyline and plot, I think. We're going to have to see how that plays out. And I have a feeling maybe in the next episode, once Georgiou's arc is resolved, it's going to be like, right, let's get back to work again and go to that nebula. Well, hey, spin her up, Mr. Stamets, here we go. Something like that's probably going to play out. Versus, thank you for the $4.99 donation. Thank you to you guys for your super chats tonight. It's greatly appreciated. Don't forget, you can become a YouTube member as well if you want to further support the channel and get some really nice emotes, which I've got access to here. Look, we've got Picard, we've got a Borg, we've got a Pike, and I think this is another Borg. Look at these little emotes. We've not used these in ages. What is that?
Yes, there's a...
Oh, it's the droid from...
That's the angry droid from Picard that went,
the F8 droids,
rogue.
Yeah.
Yes, the F8, the Fate droids. Yes, very much on the
Picard
nose
really
there.
Did that kind of well, yeah.
Yeah, so what I'm gonna throw out there as well is I think if we're just talking about pure theories and assuming that they will answer something to do with the burn, something is going on inside of that giant gaseous nebula thing, more so than just a old derelict crashed or whatever Kelpian science vessel. I think there's going to be something in there, and that may be something in there may actually be the Citadel. Like there may be something inside of it that is in this giant cloud is actually surrounding it, almost like the Briar Patch type situation where like this big cloud surrounded those planets that were inside of it. Maybe there's this big cloud that's surrounding something inside of there that is kind of, being hidden. And the Kelpian ship just happened to also be there as well, and that's going to kind of give them the tip to go in there and see what's going on. Because it was interesting is at the end of the distress call, a part of the message was cut off, so it felt like there was more to what was being done over there, and there was more that Kelpian had to say, and we didn't get to hear about it. And also, I know that it was theorized that the red dots on her face were radiation sickness, but the way that Saru reacted to it didn't seem like that was the case. It did not seem like he was concerned about radiation sickness. It seemed like he knew what those red dots were, and it was not radiation poisoning. It was something else. So I'd be curious
you mentioned about the idea of a nebula there and like some sort of citadel. For me, when you mentioned that, I just immediately remembered Enterprise and the whole idea of a Delphic expanse and how the spheres were causing this Delphic expanse in a way. It's possible we might see something like that. And I think, was in episode 5, Cronenberg, who we're calling him now, basically says, the Federation have theories, but nothing points to one direct species or entity as the cause of the burn. It's possible when we get to the nebula and maybe the citadel, we are going to find this species or group of people who did cause the burn, or something that did cause the burn. The Drache, maybe. Something like that could provide the answer. Or like a lot of people now in the chat saying, we may not get the answer to this question.
Yep.
Which I probably would be fine with, as long as this, whatever or however this season ends, is credible enough to carry my fan theories and stuff over to the next season in a way. You got to keep that hype going in a way, because if it's underwhelming, I mean, I don't want to bother with the ending now. I need my hype contained and go, yes, I need season 4 right now. I want to know. It's a bit like how we did The Mandalorian, where it was revealed at the very end of season 1. Spoilers. Gideon have a dark saber. It's like, how the fuck did he get that? We must know instantly. There's more plot. Well, hey, stuff like that. There's got to be something concrete and strong enough to carry us as fans over to the next season if they're not going to reveal the mystery straight away in that way. Do you agree with that, or?
Oh, I agree totally. It can't be a boardroom meeting of them on the Discovery saying, and we'll have to continue the journey to find the cause of the burn. No, it can't be that. It has to be like a... Right, it has to be like an, oh my... Like, what? It has to be like a big, oh my gosh.
They should troll everyone and go, it's the USS Enterprise. It's just Pike on the bridge waving again.
Yes, right, yeah.
Guess who?
Yeah, it's me, surprise, motherfucker. Yeah, yeah. I agree. Yeah, it needs to be a wow cliffhanger, or it needs to be. It could be I'm open to it, and I hope they don't try this because I don't know if they have the caliber to do this in the writers' room, which is Empire Strikes Back, for instance, was an emotional climax. It wasn't a huge to do. It was there was a lot of these emotional things and these emotional threads of I need to see how this emotional story ends, and I need to find out. So they could do something like that, and they may. I mean, they are leaning towards that a lot in this season because they're focusing a lot on the characters, this season, as opposed to the spectacle.
While I agree with you that could make sense, I'm just Riker again. Yeah, it's Riker hanging out there. I feel like it could undermine the storytelling already, because one of the big critiques I see for season 3, and you probably might agree with this as well, is I do see a lot of complaints, and fair enough, there is a lot of emotion through Sonequa Martin's portrayal of Commander Michael Burnham. Not just her character, but I do see a lot of comments online to the point where it's she seems to be crying, or seems to be an emotional scene every episode. And yes, this story-wise, it does make sense that the characters and crew would be very emotional. But I feel like it would be a bit too much if that was the end of it in an emotional way. I feel like we've not... I don't know. For me, I don't particularly get attached to characters that well in sci-fi all the time. Particularly Discovery, I don't feel connected or attached to a character to the point where if they were having an emotional thing, I don't feel emotionally connected, if that makes sense. So I don't know whether I'd like the ending myself, but obviously others may like it. It's a hard line to walk. Like you say, it's the caliber of writing where they can pull it off, really. Yeah,
it would be a very different style ending than we've experienced. But again, I feel like that might be where we're going, because the Discovery hasn't fired a single shot this whole episode.
It hasn't, no,
this whole season. Hasn't fired a single round the entire season. Not a phaser shot, not a torpedo, not a nothing. It has done nothing in terms of action. Now, that could be because they're saving that budget for maybe a big battle at the end. That's possible. But what I feel like is they're going for an emotional story as opposed to a spectacle, because they did, the big honestly, they did the big spectacle at the end of season 2, and it was ridiculous. It was ridiculous spectacle. It was over the top in some regards, but so they may be going for something a little bit smaller, but I don't know if they have the ability to do that. And I don't know, like you said, I don't know if the character is in a position to really do that, but I think that's also why they spent so much time connecting with more than just Michael, but the entire bridge team, with Tilly, with Saru, and trying to really connect to these characters on a much more emotional level for us as the viewing audience. So I think they might do that. I think it might be an emotional climax as opposed to a big one, but that's just a theory.
So Dave just said something interesting in the chat there. He said Federation Emerald Chain will have a final battle of a nebula because there's something in the nebula. So it was mentioned in the sort of briefing or communique was about, you know, there is a dilithium nursery in the nebula, which obviously could solve a lot of problems in the Federation, but also the Emerald Chain, who we did get hinted in the previous episode, they're rather desperate right now because their dilithium supplies are drying up. They're going to, like, you know, make drastic choices recently. So is Asira, who is leading the Emerald Chain. This could be leading to a large confrontation. But then again, it feels like we're a bit slightly predicting Discovery's story in a way. Season 2 ended with a large battle. You know, I hope we're not doing the same thing again. I want to see a battle, don't get me wrong. I love sci-fi. And I really want to see Discovery's modern upgrades and see it go toe-to-toe with something. Let Admiral Vance just give them the red alert. Let them fire the bloody phasers, for Christ's sakes. But, I don't know. I think a battle's inbound, to be honest.
I mean, the other thing too is I mean, there's a couple of other plot threads that haven't really been resolved. Like we had a whole episode dedicated to getting the data core thing from the Vulcans on Navarre, and like what was in that? I don't even. Do you remember?
Well, we're triangulated the nebula. That's how it was. Wasn't it?
They used it to do that, but it included also the data from the technology that they were using.
Yeah.
Yes, and those were the sensors, but that was also the technology. That was the project, and they haven't talked about that. What was that warp thing that we saw in like Stargate. That quick little graphic? Are they gonna, well, other than a Stargate, right? Or a trans warp thing, or an Iconian style gateway thing? Like, what were they researching? Is that going to come back up again? I don't know. You know, like there's a couple of other things going on that we haven't really narrowed down yet. And you know, an idea of fighting against the Emerald Chain, I mean, that does sound pretty predictable, and that may be what they go with. But also this season, as we just found out, like they're trying to do some unpredictable stuff. Like this whole episode was, we have no idea what the next 4 episodes are. We have zero theories as to what really is going on with the next 4 episodes that are based in any kind of good assumptions just on other than our guts. And I don't know, they may do something unconventional. I hope they do. I hope it's, even if it sucks, I would applaud them for doing something unconventional than just a big space battle with the Emerald Chain. I would applaud them for that.
Someone just said in the chat, so we said, I think we get a battle in the Citadel. Yeah, a battle's going to be like when some alien thing latches onto the top and all the fleets of the galaxy come out to assist.
Mm-hmm.
Feel like we've seen this before somewhere.
Yeah, there's going to be like a some kind of, not like a rapture, not
alien,
like a,
you know,
not like a creature, but like a reaper type thing, right? Yeah. Yeah, a little Mass Effect for the road.
I mean, Picard
That's
did
right.
it. Picard did it.
I
so
mean,
it's
yeah.
possible.
So yeah, I mean, and they literally like use the same sound, so I'll take it.
They did, didn't? Oh my god.
They did. It's okay. Don't worry about it. I'm surprised they didn't just cut to a cinematic of the show, of the video game. But anyways, yeah.
So we didn't really discuss Cronenberg often. We didn't get around to actually discussing him. So let's quickly discuss him because I feel it's pivotal. So he's introed in this episode a bit more. Now, what I found rather interesting, and I can't remember if I commented in our review or not, Admiral Vance seems very comfortable with him, the fact he's just like a regular bloke on board the Federation outpost or headquarters. He's not like some mysterious thing he's like brought up from a basement to deal with Georgiou and Vance never sees him. Felt very comfortable with him. Didn't question him here, didn't question his judgment or anything. Almost like they know each other like that. But the way the character's portrayed, he's this very mysterious person. I was saying in the group chat earlier, I get Elusive Man vibes from him from Mass Effect again, making a reference. But it's this character who no one really knows what he does, but he's very like doing some shady stuff behind the scenes. Probably not up to no good, but he clearly serves the Federation or something, or someone's interest at the end of the day, doesn't he? He serves the interest of something, and he's an expert in like Terran and Temple wars as well. He could be a Temple agent, like making sure the Accords are kept in line, because he's also wearing a different outfit. It's clearly not like direct Federation. He's wearing a suit and a very fancy tie, and his badge is slightly ever so different.
Yes, his badge is slightly different. So my theory with that is, I think, and maybe I'm reading too much into this, but I think it's a visual representation and also a narrative representation of how the Federation and Starfleet are willing to connect themselves to more unscrupulous characters and unscrupulous activities in order to ensure victory and safety and security. Whereas like before, Section 31 was this shadow organization that had to exist super underground, and only a few members of Starfleet Command knew about it. And it was this super shady thing, and it was very, very separated. Like you would never see them in the same room together. But now it feels like because of the burn and because everything fell apart, they're having to really connect with ideals and maybe ways about doing operations and missions and stuff like that are a little bit more sus. So that's why like those two are like the literal like connection points of the standard Starfleet admiral and the standard sci-fi Section 31 secret agent guy are so well connected because those two things, those two ideologies needed to come together in order for the Federation to survive. That's the way I interpret it.
What you just say there reminds me very much of Elusive Man in a way where his whole gist was humanity first, or humanity should prevail over everyone else and be the first.
Yes.
In a way, you could adopt that in a way, or adapt it, should I say, where Cronenberg's gist is Federation always must come first. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of a few, but in this case, the needs of the Federation outweigh the needs of a few. The group must survive. It could be something along those lines where he's there to make sure the Federation survive completely. It could be a different group. I reckon he is a different group. He's something associated somewhere else. He probably is a higher up order. And like I say, in that interview Cronenberg gave with Variety, I believe it was, where he confirmed he'll be back for season 4, he did like compare himself to Georgiou by saying he is trying to get answers out of Georgiou while she is also trying to get answers out of him. He's very fascinated of her sort of like Terran upbringings, etc. And she's fascinated about him because he's different than everyone else. And naturally anyone would be attracted to like something that's different than anyone else. You stand at Starfleet, everyone's pretty much similar. They all got the same uniforms, everything like that. There's one bloke here who's in a suit with glasses as well. Glasses aren't typically used in Star Trek, not usually. Very rarely have they seen. No. Now they're being... he's such an interesting guy, and I like these characters who are very mysterious. Some in the chat just said, is it possible to read too many sci-fi theories? Not at all. Stick around this channel if you want more, because we're mental and love talking about Star Trek in a lot of detail, which is probably wrong. So, Nick, we're approaching 10 o'clock. We're at 10 o'clock now. We've done an hour. So, theories for next week. It's going to be really hard to predict this. So, any crazy theories you think could possibly happen in part 2, take it away. Anything crazy?
So I am still holding out hope that we'll see Lorca in some capacity, and I feel like we will see the end of Georgiou in the future, and this will potentially be the backdoor pilot to the Section 31 show. I feel like the end of this next episode will be her arriving someplace that will kick off the Section 31 show whenever it takes place. I felt like when she said goodbye to Tilly and Saru, that was really like an actual goodbye. I think that's why they bothered to film that sequence.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's still going to be a goodbye between her and Primetime Burnham. We didn't really get that. And I think it'll start off the backdoor pilot. That's my theories. Beyond that, I have nothing because I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Like I said, theory-wise, really difficult. Before I answer that question, Dan Shields, thank you for your €10 donation, saying the only true serialized Star Trek series was DS9, and they would go a few episodes between big moments connecting up no mention to the intervening small stories. Yeah, kind of true in a way. That's a discussion for another time, I think, on DS9 serialization.
Yes.
You were right there about the goodbye to Tilly and Saru, but not like a proper goodbye to Michael in a way. And I think that's where we're seeing the focus on Mirror Michael, I guess. Yeah, you get my point. In, the Terran universe in a way. I don't know. It's really hard to put this up coming up.
Here's an idea. What if Michael goes through the door? Would she wind up in the mirror universe back then? And she helps her adoptive mother, and maybe she has to kick her own mirror universe ass? I'm getting a lot of vindictive vibes here.
You've got a point, because Admiral Vance makes a point of saying, can you really let her go when it comes down to it? You made a point of that, saying, last time you hesitated, this time can you really let her go? That's something interesting there. You might be onto something there, to be honest.
Maybe she goes through the door. Maybe we cut back to it, and he's like, I never said you couldn't go through the door. That's your choice. And she's like,
I do like
bitch, I'll go through this door, Yeah. Yeah.
Walking the show is very clear. Sign of send off. Very simple. Yeah, it was. We forgot to mention. I mentioned in our review the opening shot to this episode when they was down on the planet walking. Very similar to season 1, episode 1, when you get Phillipa and Burnham walking on the sand planet after they've just repaired the well. Tracking out the symbol. It's like I set a course in stars. Shenzhou comes down to rescue him. A lot of people didn't like the opening of season 1. I really like that, to be honest. Very cliche, but very cool. It's very similar when he was walking along the snow. to when he was doing it back in season 1. It's almost like we've come full circle in a way. I mentioned that last week. We've come full circle again, even more so. Now we're back in the Terran universe as well. I'm calling it Terra universe, whatever. I
mean, I think the parallels there are very intentional.
They're done intentionally. Almost to say the story is complete for these two characters in a way. This is where they're going to separate in a way.
They couldn't have made it more intentional if they arrived on a planet, that same planet from the first episode that survived after 1,000 years because they fixed that well.
Was it ever confirmed?
And they were able... No. But that planet, from what I understand,
it wasn't a gamma quadrant. We can tell that. So
yeah, no, that planet and that species was supposed to actually be and play a bigger part in the first season storyline, but then it wound up getting cut and all that other stuff. But yeah, they were supposed to get more to that. So yeah.
The Klingons ate them. That's the story there.
Yes, they ate him up. They ate him up just like they ate Georgiou. Oh, that's so sad.
I was reading it again the other day. I forgot that happened. Jesus. Valence, thank you for the £5 donation. Oh, I did not think about Burnham going through the door. A Shadow Team Mirror and Prime Burnham would be awesome. That would be interesting. Filming those scenes, yeah. I reckon that something could happen there because you're right. Because also, like I say, Burnham's very... is impulsive the right word to describe? I have finished you going and balls to this. I'm going in. And you're saving my Phillipa, even though it's not her Phillipa in a way. And it does relate back to Admiral Vance going, can you really let her go, essentially? She can't.
Right. And there's no reason to think that she... Because, I mean, like, they let, like, when in the TOS episode, like, they all went through the doorway and then they all came back. So it's possible for her to come back. Like, there's no reason to say that it's a one-way trip. And, yeah, I totally think it's totally possible. And I think that would be a lot of fun. I think that would be fun to see crazy, psychotic mirror Burnham versus prime timeline Burnham. I think that would be a lot of fun.
I kind of want to see Mirror Pike, to be honest. That could be really interesting. Someone did some great art of that on Twitter.
Oh, gosh.
But Mirror Pike.
Mirror Pike.
Really
I don't even think... I literally couldn't handle it. I could not handle it if they did that. I would freak out. I would literally freak out if I saw, and he would have to have the goatee because of course, and it would be glorious, of course. And they could bust out Mirror Spock. Like, oh my gosh. Anyways, okay, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Anyways,
but we have discussed a lot of stuff for episode 9. So I think we'll leave it here unless you've got any final bits to add on.
No, that's it, man. I think that's good. I think we've
had a good discussion. Hopefully next week we'll be back with Dom and we'll have a big chunky live stream to discuss the conclusion to part 2 before we jump into the Christmas side of things. Because obviously we'll have I have the episode names in front of me. I've got rid of them again now. Oh, it was there and Jack's deleted it. We've got the episode on next week, which is the 18th next week? 17th, sorry. Terra Firma part 2 on the 17th. Then we've got the Citadel on the 24th. That's Christmas Eve for most people. Then New Year's Eve on December 31st, we've got The Good of the People. And finally, on January 7th, 2021, we have Outside, the final episode of Season 3. A couple of good episodes for Star Trek Discovery coming up. It is going to be very exciting. Chat, it's been a pleasure as usual streaming to you guys this evening. Thank you for joining us. Hope you did enjoy the stream. Mr. Ketwolski, as per usual, it's been a pleasure. I hope you enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you everyone for your donations tonight. It's been greatly appreciated. We almost got to 100 likes. Can we get 6 final likes? Come on, chat. Come on. We believe in you. You've got to have some faith
downvotes up. Downvote it. That's what I say.
To him. This is a mirror.
Downvote it.
It plays the algorithm anyway. Whatever. But thank you to over 230 of you who've tuned in tonight. It's been a pleasure as always. We hope to see you here next week. Remember, this week we'll have our preview coming out written by the fabulous Andrew, who'll be doing a preview for episode 10, which is Terra Firma Part 2. That'll be on Tuesday. We've got a couple of theory videos, particularly how Discovery ties into the Kelvin timeline. We're keeping an eye out for that, as I've written a funny part of that video, and some of you might like it. No one else knows what it is yet, but I enjoyed it. So keep an eye out for that one. That should be coming on Friday, I think. It's going to be very fun. For the meantime, I've been Captain Jack. We're at 102 likes, actually. Christ, that went up. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week. Live long and prosper, my friends. You can't see the Vulcan salute, but goodbye. There we go.